with Nick Reinberger. This is 97.3 ABC Illawarra. Anytime you want to talk to me, give us a call on 1300 973 300.
It goes science. Yes, science is amazing. But not to me, though, because I am sick of waiting. I've been patient. I really have. I've been reasonable. Now it's time to say what I needed to. This science.
All right, tomorrow's Science Today. Time to talk tech with some of the amazing stuff that's going to be in your house, in your car, and in your pocket in not very long. With the host of Tech Time, the podcast, Matt Dickerson. G'day, Matt.
Yeah, g'day. That song always gets me in the mood for tech talk. I love it.
Excellent. Got the blood boiling. Right, let's talk about the Aussie drones in Ukraine. I knew that was happening, but are you telling me they're made of cardboard?
It goes further than that, Nick. They're actually made of cardboard and rubber bands. And I remember back to the old polystyrene planes that we used to buy at craft shops when we were kids. And you'd put the rubber band on and you'd spin it around 50 times and then you let it go. And if you spun it the wrong way, the plane would go backwards. So I saw this and I started thinking of people out in the battlefield spinning a propeller around in one direction and counting how many times they spun it. It's not quite like that, but it's actually the idea here is to make something that's very cheap on the battlefield and make it expendable. And so you're really trying to win a contest of attrition, of dollars, if you like, because obviously so many things in warfare are so expensive. When you start sending either bombs or planes, you're talking about millions of dollars to do any of that. These cardboard planes, the price is actually classified, but I've been able to find out it's somewhere in the vicinity of $1,000 to $5,000. So for the sake of the discussion, let's call it $3,000. So they send off a $3,000 cardboard and rubber band plane or drone to go into battle against other aircraft, other things that are worth millions and millions of dollars. So if your drone gets taken out, we lost $3,000, no big deal. But if you manage to take out some of the opposition, then, you're really having a victory there. So we've got a company in Australia now that's sending about 100 of these a month over to Ukraine. They're flat packed. So they're like an IKEA box. It turns up on the battlefield, flat packed. You pull it out, A goes into B, rubber bands go around there. You put your payload on, up to 5 kilos of a payload, so that can do a bit of damage if that's a bomb, for example, and you send it off into the battlefield. It sounds like something out of a cartoon, but it's real and it's happening right now.
Is it a true drone? Is it controllable? Does it have a camera so you can see where it's going? I mean, some of these, high-tech drones that they're getting, I believe they're made in Iran or something, on the other side of the battlefield is certainly able to do that. What can these do? Yeah,
so once you set it off, it's got a guidance system, a military-grade guidance system, obviously using GPS with that, but you basically program where you want it to go and then you can't control it afterwards. So you're not standing on the battlefield with your phone out.
Okay,
and just
so you put in
controlling
so here's where we expect this target to be. Click that into the GPS, then you send it off.
Exactly right. Now, they actually are reusable. So if it doesn't get taken out in the mission, it will actually come back and return back to you. They've had one there that's been successful in 60 flights so far and hasn't been taken out.
Okay, so it doesn't just run into things. It actually drops something?
Correct. It's got a payload of up to 5 kilos that can drop, and it could even be used to drop supplies into some of your own personnel, for example, but mainly it's being used to drop some sort of explosives into different areas. And if it doesn't get taken out, then come back and we'll use it again. Sometimes they get taken out in the first go, but I'm the same as you. I imagine there might have been a kamikaze drone, for example, and just go and take out something by flying into it, but they're actually dropping a payload and then returning if possible.
And where does the rubber band come in? Surely that's not the engine.
No, that was the.
Well, that's just holding stuff on.
That's basically because they're all flat packed, and then part A clips into part B, etc. They've got actual rubber bands to hold the wings in place and to hold these various parts in place. So when I say rubber bands, it's a bit more like a very strong rubber connector that keeps things where they should be and gives it that little bit of flexibility, so that as it flies, if it hits a little bit of turbulence or maybe gets a bit of rough weather or whatever, it can actually flex a little bit.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, that's incredible. And it will come back to you.
Exactly right.
If it doesn't get taken out.
Yeah, that's right. It'll come back around land and then you can use it again.
Wow, that is unbelievable. It's incredible. And developed out of Australia.
Developed out of Australia. Interestingly enough, as so often happens with Australian technology, the Australian Army, the Australian Defence Forces haven't bought any of these. They're selling them to Ukraine, but not selling them to Australia yet.
Matt Dickinson with us talking tech. Now, floppy disks. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who wanted to release an album, and they said, I'm thinking of releasing a very low quality MP3 or 3.5-inch floppy disk. I said, no one will ever get to play it. And he said, well, that's not the point. You just kind of have it and you maybe stick it up on your wall or something. Are floppy disks still around?
They are, and they're still used by some things that are pretty high tech. There's probably only 30 or 40 Boeing 747s still flying at the moment, passenger planes still flying at the moment, and most of those still use floppy disks to get things like navigational aids updated or runway changes updated. So you've got someone sitting in the office with a computer somewhere there with a floppy disk drive in it. They stick it in, upload the data, and someone walks across to the 747, plugs it into the dash of the 747 and uploads that data. Keep in mind that these 747s, they were probably over 50 years ago, the first 747s rolled off the production line. So a 3.5-inch floppy, well, that wouldn't have been in existence back when the 747 first came out. So that was probably an upgrade to move up to the 3.5-inch floppy drive. So you've got things like that. You've got embroidery machines, you've got plastic moulding machines. But the big issue is that they haven't been manufactured. Floppy disk drives or disks haven't been manufactured since 2010, and we're starting to get a worldwide shortage of them. Some of the warehouses that are selling them are saying we're still actually shipping them out the door, but we've got no more coming in the door. It's going to get to the point soon, maybe in the next 3 or 4 years, they're going to put a call out across the world. Anyone out there with floppy disks in the bottom of your filing cabinet, bottom drawer of your cupboard or whatever, bring them out and get rid of them because we need them, and everyone would have a pile stacked away somewhere, surely.
Well, I mean, I've got some mini discs stacked away in my house that still have some recordings that I'm fond of on them, but floppy disks, I'm not sure. I believe, actually, getting back to military technology, that there are several missile sites, particularly in the US, which are running still on MS-DOS and not even 3.5-inch, the big floppy disk.
The 5 1/4, or actually 8-inch. 8-inch preceded the 5 1/4 inch.
Still running on that software to open the bomb bay doors and launch the missiles. So and getting an update on those will prove to be difficult.
Well, and that's right. And you'd question the logic of going and doing all that, spending all the money to go and upgrade that for something hopefully you never use. But this is the thing, they were an effective means and they were a big upgrade. If you remember the old 5 1/4 inch, which were a bit flexible and a bit prone to be damaged, they only had 1.2 megs of data on them, Nick. But the new fandangled smaller ones, a 3.5-inch, had 1.44 megs of data on them. Wow, what an upgrade. So you think about that compared to, say, just a memory stick these days, it's just quite incredible.
Oh, it's ridiculous, isn't it? All right, and finally, Ford have got a new patent, which means if you're not able to pay off your car, it'll take itself back off to be repossessed. What is the story here?
I've seen those TV shows where someone comes in with a baseball bat and you've got your Ferrari there and they have to take it back off you and they have the argument and it's all pretty much staged, it looks like. But I didn't think repoing cars was such a big deal. But obviously it is. The fact that Ford have now applied for and been awarded a patent on a car that can start to, it first annoys you. If you haven't made some payments, it starts to ding every time you get in the car for a minute or two, so it just annoys you and embarrasses you for your friends that are in the car with you. And then it starts cutting back features like air conditioning, and then it starts to limit where you can go. So it mightn't allow you to go to the pub, for example, on the weekend, but you can go to work to still earn some money. And after all that fails, if you still haven't paid, then it says, sorry, Nick, you haven't paid. The car's going back to the dealership tomorrow morning, and it takes itself back there. Now, keep in mind, that part's not working yet, but they've got the patent for it. So you walk out the next morning and go, where's my car? Sorry, it took back to the dealership by itself. So it must be a big issue.
See, you wouldn't even want dealers anymore if that's the case. You could just buy it direct from Ford, direct from Tesla, and it just takes itself back to Tesla if that's the case.
That's right. And that direct ownership or that direct order model is becoming very common now with a variety of companies out there. You mentioned Tesla. I know Hyundai with some of their newer vehicles, their EVs, you just buy them direct online. So that's happening. And it does. I've had it happen where a semi-trailer pulls up with a car, it backs off and says, "There's your car, sir." But then the opposite might happen if you don't pay your bill.
Love it. Matt, always great to catch up with you, mate. Some more amazing stories. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, Nick.
That's Matt Dickerson. Tech Talk, the podcast, is what you need to look up if you want to hear more, including some stories about hydrogen-powered planes and sound-alike scammers swindling seniors using AI clones. All of that is in the latest Tech Talk podcast. And news is coming up here at ABC Illawarra after